Unit 1.3. In this unit, what we will do is take a look at Eclipse, just a quick look at Eclipse and what you need to do for the remainder of the year. We're also going to do a little bit of coding, nothing crazy here, just some printing and what are all the different things that we're going to see mean, and a good introduction into writing code. So the first thing is you should have already installed Eclipse. Okay, should have already installed Eclipse, and if you did not do that, you have to do that before going through this tutorial. So you have to make sure you have Eclipse installed and ready to go. So I'm going to look down here on my bar here where all my apps are, and I'm going to look for Eclipse, and you could tell that I have Eclipse down here. Okay, it's a nice way to have it if you're running, if you have a Mac or even if you have a Windows, have it somewhere where it's a shortcut. So I'm going to just launch Eclipse by clicking on it, and everything that I see here we want to go through. Okay, the first thing that comes up is a splash screen, and the splash screens is what we're going to see when we're setting up any project, and we got to know what all these things mean. The first one is very important. It's about your workspace. So your workspace has to be set up. I currently have a workspace here called Lake-Workspace, and I suggest you do the same thing. Now you can see it says users Lake-Workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my window here. So here's my name, Lake, and here's my workspace, Lake-Workspace. I've already created that a long time ago. But what I'm going to show you right now is if you're doing this for the first time, it will suggest a workspace. It might say Eclipse-Workspace or whatever. Now, this is all about directories, okay? And by directories, I mean folders. So there's a folder called users. Let me just click on this here. There's a folder called user. Inside that users folder, there's Lake, and inside that Lake folder, there's a Lake workspace folder. So I'm speaking about your workspace, which is a folder. If you want, you could hit browse, okay, and then you could decide where you want to put your workspace. So I'm going to show you an example. So let's say I wanted my workspace. You don't want to do this, just an example. Find a good place to put it. I want to put my workspace on the desktop. Okay. Now it's going to tell me it's on the desktop, and then I could decide what I want to call it. Okay. So let's say I want to call it Lake. Okay. And it's good to say workspace. And if I say launch, you see what happened there? It created Lake Workspace on the desktop. Okay. And then once that happens to you, Eclipse launches and it has this welcome screen. And this welcome screen is, if you're running this for the first time, is what you'll see. And it has a bunch of things in here that you can go ahead and look through and so on. And you could always get rid of it. So I'm going to get rid of it. And if you get rid of it, this is what you would see for the first time. Okay? Because nothing is in here. The left side called the Package Explorer. This left side called the Package Explorer. This is where all your projects are going to be. In the middle here, this middle piece, this is where you're going to be doing most of your work, writing code. This is where your files are going to show up where you could actually type. This is where your console is going to be. These are stuff that we don't necessarily need right now. No outline. We don't need the task. We don't necessarily need this either. And this and that. So basically, this is the look you're going to have. Okay. Now, I don't want to work in this workspace. This is just for you to see. So you have to figure out where you want to put your workspace and get that piece set up. All right. So let me just close this out. Okay, I'm going to exit this. I want to get rid of Eclipse now. So you see my workspace here. I don't actually want that workspace, but let me just launch Eclipse again so I could show you something. If I launch Eclipse again, it's automatically going to go to the last workspace, which is this one. This is very crucial. If you cannot find your workspace, you're going to have a tough time finishing your projects. So you got to make sure you set this up properly and you know where it is and you can find it. Now if I click on this drop down menu, it would show me some other workspace that I have, right? So you could see I have the Lake Dash workspace on the desktop, and I have the other one that I had before, okay, which is the one I actually want to use. I don't want this one, so I'm going to move that one to my trash. I don't want that workspace. This is the one I want. So I just showed you how to do your workspace. That's the first thing. That's a big one. The second thing we want to do is, if I'm going to launch my workspace now, the one that I already have. Yours will have no projects and stuff yet if it's the first time you're doing this. But now I have a bunch of projects already, and you can see I have code already, so I'm going to get rid of all of that, showing you how to do this as well. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the look we want, okay? So if you're going to make a project, we're going to go to File, New, Java Project, okay? And you could also go to Project, and then it'll ask you to choose a project, and you choose a Java project. So we're going to be writing in Java, object-oriented programming, so we're going to use Java project, okay? So now I'm going to make a project, right? And inside that project, we're going to put everything for the year. So let me just call it Introduction. Now you have to be careful here. I'm spelling this. You got to spell it the same way. Uppercase I, Introduction to Computer Science. Alright, so you could tell my naming. Uppercase I is for the name of the project, and capitalization separates the words. You cannot have a space in your name, okay? There is no space. You can't have a space. So the uppercase is what separates the word. Uppercase I for introduction, uppercase T for to, C for computer, and S for science, okay? The other thing I want to pay attention to is the JRE. This is one of the vocabulary stuff that you had to go through earlier on. Java Runtime Environment. We're going to choose 8, 1.8, okay? So even though you have all the other more recent version, I'm going to prefer to use 1.8 because 1.8 is sufficient for this course. Now, so everything else, once you choose 1.8 and you have that, you click Finish, and you would see that project over here. It gets highlighted when it's created. So this is the Project Explorer. You could open it up, you could plug it in, okay? These are movable and stuff. So inside of this project is, this is going to be where we put everything in here. So I'm going to expand by clicking the little arrow on the side. You'll see SRC. That stands for source. Source code goes here. So I'm going to make a package, okay? So the package I'm going to make, package, right, is this little box, a brown box that looks like a gift. Or you could go File, New, Package. Let me do that again. File, New, Package, okay? So either this way or you click this little box. So I'm going to make a package, and I'm going to call it Unit 1. No space, again, unit with the number 1, all lowercase. You have to be all lowercase. And then I'm going to finish. Obviously, I'm going to put my code for Unit 1 in Unit 1. And then we're going to make Unit 2 and then Unit 3 when we move on. Okay. So now, because we're playing around in Unit 1 just to get a feel for things, I'm going to make a class. Okay. So the class, which was part of the vocabulary, is the blueprint for the object. Okay. The blueprint for the object. And the main method, look at right here. Make sure you check this because we want the splash screen to type this for us. So I'm going to call this printing project. Okay. And the reason why I'm calling it printing project, this the class, is because I shouldn't say printing project. Let me call it printing class. Okay. Don't want space. That's not good for naming, so just make sure you keep. So that's what we got printing class, and we have this main method here. Why do we need the main method? It's the only method we need. The only method you need is called main. And the printing class, you're just going to do some prints, you know, and figure out how things go. So this is how we're going to always start by making a project. We're going to have some package, and we're going to put all our work inside the unit based on which unit you're working in. So let me hit finish here, and what you get is your first project. Now, if you look here, you'll see it's in this package, unit 1, and you will see the public class. This is the name of the class that we have, okay? And then we have the main method. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here. We got to pay attention, very close attention. These curly brace here could be a nightmare. You're going to find that if you're having any issue, my code doesn't work, I have an error, it's probably going to be this, the first thing, okay? So you got to get used to this if this is the first time you're doing this. If this is not the first time you're doing this, then you very well know what I'm talking about, because you probably went through this before. Why is it so important? It's important because code is stored in blocks. Let me just say that again. Code is stored in blocks. A method is a block. Let me just do something here. This main method, the only one we have, is a block. How do you know it's a block? I'm going to click right next to this and drop it down and hit an enter. I'm doing the same thing here. Hit enter. You'd find if my cursor is here, it puts a box around its partner. This is the open for the block and the close for the block. Let me just drop down here so you can see how a block looks. A block looks like this. This is the open and this is the close. All your code needs to go between here. So this is the block opens, this is the block closing, and this is the code in between. Okay? So always like that. So right now this little thing right here is called a comment. This is not code. Okay? So let me put a little double slashes. This is a comment. And a comment is just a statement about your code. Okay, that's one way to make a comment. The other way to make a comment is to put 1 slash and a star. Okay, that's shift 8, and then hit enter. This is a paragraph comment about your code. So if you have something to explain and it's a little lengthy, you use this type of commenting. If you have something to explain and it's just a single comment or a single statement, then you use this type. Obviously, you could use more than one single statement. Okay, this is comment 2. And another statement about your code. So basically, this is how you do a comment. Now, because I'm inside of this block, the main block, there is a second block on the outside, the class block. Okay? So we have a block on the outside and we have a block on the inside. So this is called nesting. It's a block inside of a block. And this is going to happen all year long. We're going to have blocks inside blocks, which are inside blocks. So we're going to have that's why these things get confusing, because once you start having blocks inside of blocks inside of blocks, then you're going to have a lot of these. And if you don't have them lining up right, you're going to run in trouble. So how do I line them up? I line them up vertically. Some people like to line them up the way they were, one up here and one down here. I like vertical because then I could look straight down. Now let's talk about indentation. Where is where this main is? It's not over here. That's bad code, okay? Because this block, so let me just pull this over. This block and this block are in the same line of sight, right? Same vertical line. That's not good. We want to make sure that our blocks are separate and easy to be identified. So this guy goes with this guy, and this guy goes with this guy. Just keep that in mind always, that you could follow the blocks by looking straight down. Okay, so every time you have a block, another block, you want to do a slight indent by hitting the tab once. Okay. So basically all we need now is, I'm going to drop this down so it look a little better. So all we need now is to do a little bit of work inside of print. Okay. So every time we make a project, we're going to start off with a class. It's the blueprint. It is the whole definition for the object. And then we need methods. It's going to be the object's behavior, right? There's things that the object can do, or the class. And what we're going to do now is just write a couple of prints, okay? So first of all is system, look at how I'm spelling it, .out.print, and I'm going to put the word hello here. This is code. How do you know? First of all, the color, comment saying green. You could always change this in preferences as well if you want to change up the look of your Eclipse, but the color is going to be different, okay? So you can see this is black with some blue. This blue here is called a string literal in quotes. This is a string literal. String literal in quotes. And what did I do? I just made a comment about my code. Now, this system dot out dot print prints hello, but it leaves the cursor right after hello. So that if I were to write another print, the print will pick up right after hello. So you want to save. Up here on the left, you have two floppy disks. This is really funny because floppy disks are not even being used nowadays, but there's still the icon for saving. Saving this means save one file. This means save all. So you want to always click save all. And then you want to run this code to see if it works. This play button is the run. Okay, don't try clicking these over here. Okay, there's a not, then it's the big one, the big play button. And if you click run, you will see the console show hello. See, that's my code. It just printed hello right here. The cursor is currently here, okay, because print says print and leave the cursor right after. The second time I'm gonna go on and make a print now. System .out.print bye. Okay. Now what happens here then is going to print hello bye, right? Because bye is going to happen right after hello. So if you don't want that to happen, you could put an LN, and that stands for new line. What that does then, it prints hello, then it drops the cursor to a new line, and then bye prints on the second line. Let's see that. See, print hello, the cursor was here, drops down here because of the new line, prints bye. The cursor is currently here though, because bye doesn't have a new line, okay? The new line stuff happens after the print. So there's no new line here, so the cursor is currently here. So if I go now and print something after that, okay? Good. Now, if you were to print this after, what would happen? Well, it'll print hello, it'll drop to a new line. It'll print bye, it will not drop to a new line. Then it'll print good, and then it will drop to a new line. So this could get tricky sometimes because people think just because they see a new line, it just goes to a new line. But you got to remember the new line happens after. So right now the cursor is not here. It's actually down here. Okay? Because of this new line. If you want all of them on a new line, you could just print new line here. You don't need to put a new line here, because the new line is going to happen after bye, and then good is going to print on a new line. Let's see that. Hello, bye, good. Cursor is currently here though. So if a print comes after this, it will start printing from here. Okay? So that's basically how you print. You could print without new line, LN, or you could print with new line. Okay? Now there are some things, let me print a new line here so everybody's all vertical and nice. So whenever I ask you to print something, I'm going to say print it vertically, and I'm going to say print it horizontally. If I say print it vertically, I'm speaking of saying new line, LN, line new. Or if I say print it horizontally, take the LNs off, okay, and then print them straight across. Let's run that and see how that looks. This will print them all in one line, see? So that's one thing that I wanted to show you. And I'm going to show you one final thing. Sometime you want to print stuff that are tough to print. Okay. Now you realize I just did print this. This is printing nothing but drops it to a new line. Okay. Now if you try to do that without the new line, it won't work. Let me show you what I mean. If I did this and I take the LN off, it shows an error. This is a syntax error. See, all this stuff is going to be in your vocab. It is a syntax error because it's saying you cannot print nothing here if you're just printing. But if you're printing with a new line, you could print nothing because we don't need to print something. We just need to go to a new line. But if you do print without a new line, you have to give it something to print. Okay. So let's make sure you make a note of that. This must give it something to print. But sometimes we want to print things that are tough to print. By that I mean, what if I wanted to print a quote? Since string literals happen in quotes, what if I wanted to print just a quote? Right? That's going to be tough because when I run this, the quotes don't print. See? We don't have hello in quotes. We just print the stuff inside the quote. So what if I wanted to print a quote? Well, if you want to print a quote, you have to use something called an escape character, backslash. Okay? So we're going to put that inside a quote and then put a quote. It's kind of weird. Let me separate them so you could see. This and that is the start and the stop for the string literal. But I want to print this quote, I have to escape it. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. See the quote? So if you wanted to print the word hello in quotes, okay? So you want to get that quote, then you want hello, and then we want to do another quote. So now I'm printing hello in quotes. Okay? You may say, well, what all that space is? Yeah, space is number 32, is an ASCII. That's a character. It understands that, and it would print the space. If you don't want any space, don't put any. And the hello now is going to print without any space, but you'll get the quotes around it. Okay? So that's one. What about if you wanted to print a backspace? Okay? What if you wanted to print a backspace? Okay? So first you need to print the string literal. We want to print not a backspace, but a backslash. I kept saying a backspace, I mean a backslash. Because since there's an escape, and it's used to print the quote, then how do you print this? Okay? These are some tough ones. Two of them. Okay? This escape, the escape. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to run this. Voila. So that's kind of tricky. Okay? The escape, to print this escape, you need to escape the escape. If you want to print a quote, you got to escape the quote. The other one, final one, well, we have two more, but they have the same flavor. I'm printing everything vertically so that we don't have any issues here in terms of which ones we're speaking about. So now I want to print something that, so let me show you something here. I'm going to print the word help, and I want to put a tab, so \t. Here we go again. See, that escape character is very important because when used with other characters, it could mean a command or it could print you something. In these cases up here, it's printing these, printing the quote. In this case up here, that means tab. So make a note here. \t means tab. I'm going to do another one. There's another one I want to show you. Let me say, what's up? This is a \n, means new line. So we have two ways to do a new line, okay? We could do ln or \n. Let's run this, see how this looks. And we could see, look at that. We have the hello, the by, all new lines. We have the hello in quotes. The escape. We tabbed on help. Okay, it would have been over here, but we tabbed it over one. And then we have this new line with a new line. Hence, we ended up with two new lines. See where this ends up? Okay, so what we end up here seeing then is how to print, all the little tricks that you could come across with printing. And these are some, let me just put a little space on there and make this look a little nicer. Okay. So finally, system.out.println Let's say Jones 10 false. Yeah, I know this is weird. What's this? Well, this is called concatenating. Okay. Now I told you about variables. Let's leave a little space here. I told you about variables and I also told you about type. This is an integer. This is a Boolean, true or false. This is a string. I'm printing all of them together. Let me put some space between here. So what I'm saying here is print Jones, print 10, print false, all on the same line. Then when you finish, drop to a new line. However, 10 is not a string. So how could I do this? What are you adding? This is adding? No, this means concatenating. This means take all these three things, put them together, including any space or anything that you have, and print them. So it prints Jones with a space. 32 is the ASCII for that. 10, then a space, then false. Now, this is a tricky one because even though this is an integer, because it's being concatenated with a string, it turns this into a string. And it turns this as well into a string. So I'm going to run that and I'll show you that everything prints just as a Jones 10 false. Again, only one new line here, so it drops right beneath what's up. But what's up had two new lines, right? This one and this one. And so therefore it drops just one down. I'll put a new line here as well. And run it again, and we'll see that the Jones will be a little further down. Okay? Right here. Now, you could put more than one new line, okay? You could put like 3 of them. It's going to just be further down. So this is a critical thing. If you have a lot of things to print, including a string, all you got to do is concat. I'll put a plus sign on. This is called operator overloading. In some cases, this plus sign can actually mean to add, but in this case, it means to just put things together, make strings, and print them. Okay? So that's our quick introduction to this Eclipse and what we'll be doing. The main method is the only one we need. We won't have a lot of code in main going forward, but this was just for you to see. This is a very important concept, the idea of printing, because as you're working through, you're going to find yourself printing to make sure things are working right. And you could check yourself, check your code to make sure everything is working by just putting some prints and watching what's happening. This is very crucial, so I had to show you this first. Let's backtrack and take a quick look. Blocks. You need blocks, okay? See, so as I start to write code, the blocks kind of stretch out, and you want to make sure you could identify where your blocks are. And so we have these 2 blocks in here. Don't have any more yet, but going forward we'll have a lot more. System.out.println. This is an ln, lowercase, is printing and then dropping to a new line. Without the ln, if I did just this, it means print but do not drop to a new line. A comment. If you have a single comment, to /. And if you have a paragraph, you could do a slash and then star. And something that I should have mentioned earlier is that a line of code, every command ends with a semicolon. Now I keep typing and I never really mentioned that earlier on, but you can see that's another difference here. These comments don't necessarily need a semicolon to end them, but a line of code does. Alright, so this brings us to the end of section 1.3 and of course the end of unit 1. It's a wrap.